Verification, sir. All right, perfect. And we are live. I want to thank everyone for tuning in to a very special edition of Off the Record on the People's Podcast this afternoon. We have a wonderful guest with us today, one who is going to give us some amazing information as well as information, and that is none other than our brother Haqq. Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Wa alaikum salam, my brother.
Yes, sir. This means a lot to myself, my family, and the viewing audience of the People's Podcast that you would take time out of your busy schedule to come have a conversation with us. The first question that we would like to know, sir, is when did you first hear the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad?
Well, first of all, I thank you, Brother Joshua, for giving me this opportunity to address your People's Podcast audience and the believers and whoever else is watching. I always view your podcast. I mean, you have so many. And let me say, I always enjoy your interviews, brother. They're so open, they're so honest, and there's no stiffness there. So I thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Well, I heard the teachings. Well, let me say that originally I was a member of the 5% Nation of Gods and Earth. When Clarence 13X first left the mosque. And there's a lot of information around why he left, but I'm gonna give it to you straight, and then I'll tell you how I got involved with him, and then my first hearing the teachings of the Hon Elijah Muhammad. There's a lot of information that he was kicked out of the mosque in Temple number 7 because he had all of this insight and things of that nature. As you know, there's a requirement, there's discipline in the nation. He definitely, in fact, knew the lessons. See, everybody that came into the Nation of Islam during that period in the 60s, they latched on to certain things that they had of interest. Some brothers liked the business aspect. Some brothers liked the discipline. He loved the lessons, but he didn't have good discipline. And Malcolm excommunicated him because he didn't take care of his family. He loved to gamble. So in the nation, if you didn't take care of your family, you were put out the temple. So when he left, because he knew the lessons and loved the lessons, he took the lessons with him and he began to teach brothers in the street. I'm not sure, maybe around 63 that he left, and maybe late 63. But when he left, he took the lessons with him, and he lived in Harlem, and he taught some brothers in Harlem, young men, the lessons. So my brother-in-law, who was in prison at the time, he came home one day from prison and said that we were God. I said, we're God? I said, how's that? And he began to tell us about the lessons. And he gave me the lessons. And they were handwritten, but they were lessons that Clarence had given to some other brothers that gave it to him. And then he took me and some more of my friends. We went up to Harlem because I lived in Brooklyn at the time. And we met what was known as the firstborn of the 5%ers, a brother named Bismillah. The other brother was named Kareem. And we're down in this basement in Harlem smoking weed, and quoting the lessons. And these brothers knew the lessons. And they were dropping it, and I was just in complete awe, And then we met some other brothers called A-Allah and B-Allah. These were considered what was known as the firstborn. They were up in Harlem. See, but they never came out of Harlem. So we met some brothers in Brooklyn. See, Brooklyn was different from Harlem. Harlem, everybody kind of stayed up there. But these brothers in Brooklyn, they by the name of Khalik and Black Seed and Shamgard. In fact, Shamgard's son, Shah Shamgard, played in the NBA. And some brothers named Minister and Black Seed. And there was a whole host of brothers. And so we began to, read the lessons and quote them. And you had to know your lessons by heart. And so I took on a name because there was a big Shamik. I was little Shamik. Self, he, Allah, master, equality, quality, king. I was little Shami. So I'm reading these lessons. Now, this is 1964. I'm 14 years old. And I'm reading these lessons, and at the bottom of the lessons, the name W.D. Farad and Elijah Muhammad is on there. So I'm wondering, who's these cats? That's what I said in my head, you know. And so I asked the brothers, I asked one of the brothers that taught me, I said, well, who are them? He said, oh, that's Farad is a half original man, and Elijah just has what? Knowledge and wisdom. But the father, that's what we call Clarence 13X at the time, we called him the father. The father got knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, God. And but that still puzzled me. I said, man, if these men gave the lessons, W.D. Farad and Elijah Muhammad, I want to meet them. So we started, there were brothers in the neighborhood that FOI at the time, and they were selling papers, and they invited us to the temple. And when I went to the temple, there was a whole host of us, young brothers and sisters. We were all 5%ers. And in fact, that's not the name. We were called Gods and Earths. So when I went, I said, no, this is it. This is it. So there was some friction about that, because there was dozens of us from the area I lived in Coney Island in Brooklyn. There were literally 60 or 70 of us that went to the temple at that time. And that's how I heard the teachings of the Hon Elijah Muhammad. Now, at that time, by the time we started going and processing, Malcolm was out already. In fact, the brothers used to take us on call outs. You know, they were kind of getting us involved in the teachings, and they would take us selling the Muhammad Speak newspapers, and they would show us these brothers. I didn't know who they were, but they were Malcolm and his people. They said, well, y'all stay away from them. But then that whole thing happened with Malcolm's assassination, but we continued to come. And it was a fascinating experience, because we were the first young people that came into the nation that weren't born in the nation. The brothers and sisters that were young in the nation, their fathers and mothers were in, but we came from outside the nation. And at the time, Minister Farrakhan had came to New York, and they told the Hon Elijah Muhammad about all of these young brothers and sisters that were coming out to the nation. He wanted to meet us. And then in 1967, he had planned to come to New York. He hadn't been into New York since, I think, 1965. And he wanted to come in 1967. By that time, I had just got my ex. I was 16 years old and was inducted, of course, into the FOI, because you had to be 16 years old. And so the Hon Elijah Muhammad had sent the message through Captain Yusuf Shah at the time, he was Captain Joseph when I came in, and that he wanted to meet all of these young brothers and sisters, and he was planning to come to New York on June, I believe it was June 6, 1967, and the war between Israel and Egypt had happened. And the Hon Elijah Muhammad, we had collected all kind of money. We were putting up posters. He said Minister Farrakhan, the Honorable Minister Farrakhan, had told us that the messenger wanted to meet us. And we were so excited. We had collected money because we wanted to pay for his trip. And then he canceled it because the war between Egypt and Israel. And he said that the Jews controlled a large part of New York, and he didn't want to interfere, and that would affect us here in New York City. And we were so disappointed. So that was really my beginning of coming into the teachings of the Hon Elijah Muhammad. And like I said, there was some friction between Clarence and those brothers of the 5% Nation. In fact, it got to the point where we had a fight with them. And because of my brother-in-law, who was at the time, he was a junior FOI, my wife's brother, because that's how old we were. Many of us were 14 and 15, and some of those brothers that we grew up with had become 5%, but they wouldn't come to the nation because they didn't want to, be a part of that discipline. So he was giving them on consignment Muhammad Speak newspapers and bean pies, and they wouldn't pay him. And so he told us about it. So we confronted them, and a big fight broke out. That hurt me so much, because these were young men that I grew up with, and it was a big controversy. And Captain Shaw sent Lieutenant Richard Adex. He sent Lieutenant Allen out to my area. I mean, it must have been about 200 FOIs showed up, and we confronted them. And Lieutenant Richard said something that was very profound. He said, "Brothers, we love y'all. We are a part of us." He said, "One day you will be in the ranks with us." And it kind of settled it then, but it was a big controversy. Yes, sir. So that was my first real introduction into the Nation of Islam. And I became of age in the Nation of Islam, you know? Yes, sir.
Excellent job, Brother Haqq, and people are showing you love all across the country. Thank you for everyone who continues to like, share, and subscribe to the People's Podcast. Brother Nelson Ramos, our brother out of Massachusetts, is showing love. And thank you to everyone who watches on YouTube, Auntie and Brother Musa and Brother Kente, everybody who shows love on YouTube as well. I want to go back because you're giving us a lot of talking points and you're connecting a lot of the dots. So it was Malcolm X who put Clarence 13X out of the nation.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's the truth, brother. There's a brother named Brother James LX4X. He's Brother James Muhammad. He lived next door to Clarence. They lived in an apartment building, public housing on Lenox Avenue. And Clarence was they called him Puddin'. He liked to gamble. In fact, the first time we saw him, we went up to Harlem, and he was shooting dice. And he would roll the dice, and if a 7 came up, he said, "Ha, 7, that's God, son." Yeah. And that was, yeah, Malcolm put him out. He was supposed to come back. In fact, he used to tell us that all of us would have to go into the nation at some point. And that was the first part of his teachings. He used to tell us that all the time. In fact, I went to visit him along with some brothers because they took him to a prison hospital called Manawan Prison Hospital. And because he was telling them he was God, you know, and they thought he was crazy. But it was the teachings, of course, of the Hon Elijah Muhammad. And so we would learn the lessons, brother. I mean, I knew all my lessons before I even came into the nation at that time, because we learned them. And you had to know your lesson. You were 5%. If you came outside, they would act.
Yeah, your phone's on mute. Your phone's on mute, bro. Haqq. Your phone's on mute. Bro, Haqq, your phone's on mute. All right, thank you everyone who's watching. We getting this great history. Brother Haqq. Okay, there we go.
Yes, sir. Were you able to hear me?
No, sir. Your phone went out for a minute, but we got you right there.
Let me, that was my daughter calling me. Let me do something, brother.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so they won't.
Okay, this is great history that we're getting right now. And everyone who is watching, please let us know in the comments if you have any guest suggestions for upcoming people as we get the history of the Nation of Islam, the history of the gods and earth, and the 5% nation. And man, we're just getting history of the Asiatic people. Shout out to Brother Kente for watching. Shout out to everybody who always shows love. Okay, bro, Haqq, yes, sir. So back to you, sir. I'm listening.
Yeah. So it was a wonderful time just knowing those lessons and having all that information. But we didn't really know how to handle it. We didn't have the discipline. But we always had that desire to go into the nation. So when I went in, there was a whole group of us, I mean, at least about 100 at one time, as young people coming into the Nation of Islam and processing. And I was a member of the FOI, and the brothers recognized us and were kind of grooming us, because after the firebomb of Temple Number 7 on 116th Street, that was a period of despair for many of the Muslims in the Nation of Islam, and Malcolm had been assassinated, and it caused a very, very bad taste in the mouth of many of the people in New York. So we were like a burst of energy. And the Honorable Minister Farrakhan that just came from Boston, I think he must have been about 27 years old. I was 16. So I was looking at this man. I said, this man looked just as young as me. And he was just fiery, and he would talk to us and tell us that the messenger asks about us all the time. And we would go out with the Muhammad Speak newspapers. And at the time, the paper was 20 cents. And we would get 3 cents or for each paper. And that was wonderful for us because we just desired just to be out there. And at the time, I remember I was on the street one day and I was selling the Muhammad Speak newspaper. And one of the guys walked past and slapped the papers out of my hand and said, man, y'all killed Malcolm. See, I wanted to fight. And the brother said, no, because I was never a punk, even in the street. I wasn't allowing that. He said, no, brother. He said, we gotta take that. And but it was a wonderful time for us young brothers and sisters. And there was a point when I became 18 years old, and they had the draft on it at that time. And I mean, there's so much, Brother Joshua, there's so much information in my head. I can't just put everything together. But I went to the minister at the time and I asked him, should I, go to the draft board? And he said, brother, don't even go. Don't go. And we were just, I mean, it was at a time, you talking about 68, 67. I remember the first time I went to Chicago, it was 66, I believe. And we took a bus there. It was like an 18-hour ride, and we arrived in Chicago. And I remember my first time being on post. They put me on the check post. Okay, imagine the check post. I'm 17, maybe just turning 17, and I'm on the check post. And this captain from Los Angeles, Captain Edward 2X, he became Captain Ali Rashid, and we all lined up. And he says to everybody, y'all will be checking. He said, let me tell you something. He said, I don't want nothing to come through here. He said, if your mama comes through here, you check her. And he said, nothing should get past. He said, if anything get past here and our leader and teacher is harmed at any point, he said, we will bust you. And I'm not talking busting you out of the ranks. I'm talking about busting you. Man, my heart was just pounding. So he said, all right. He said, if you don't feel that you could check, we were all lined up, of course. It was maybe about 50 brothers lined up, all in FOI uniform. He said, if you don't feel that you could check, step back. I went to step back, and he said, if you from Mosque number 7 in New York, you better not step back because y'all are well-trained. Brother Josh, I think I may have searched maybe about 500 people that day. And then once we got everyone in, now I'm still a young man. So the captain said, he said, all right, all your brothers go in and hear your leader and see your leader and teacher. And they took us in, and the Hon Elijah Muhammad was up there already, and he was bowing to the place was like, all praises due to Allah, to the Hon Elijah. I could just feel chills running through my body. And he began to teach. Of course, I don't recall everything that he said, but that was my first time. And here was a man that we had all come together for. It was amazing. It was amazing. I was never the same. Yes, sir.
All praises due to Allah. Yes, sir. And thank you, everyone who's showing you love, Brother Haqq, all across the country. Brother Michael out of Philadelphia, both of my sisters, Sister Miriam and Naima. Thank you all for watching. We getting a great history lesson. So I want to go back because I'm tying some things up with like 5 interviews that we're doing strictly with just the history of New York. This is the first time we've ever heard that Malcolm X was the one who put Clarence 13X out of the mosque, gambling, taking care of a family. And then I want to go back to your personal relationship with Clarence 13X. Was he nice to you? Was he serious? What was he like since you knew him?
All right. We would all see him maybe once or twice a month. He would be in different places. He had what was set up, brothers call it the uh what do they call it? The show and prove meetings, but we didn't call it at that time. We called it the universal gathering or the parliament. That's what we called it back then. And we would all be in a circle and he would be there. He would be teaching. I mean, he would just go on and on. He was very, very cordial. You know, I could tell he's from the South because he had an accent, but he just showed us everything. He talked to us nice. He told us that one thing he'd always say, he said, teach the babies, teach the babies. And that's why you see so many young people that came into becoming members of the Gods and Earth, because that was our call to go teach the young people. And he would always tell us that. And but he was always nice. And when we went to visit him at the Mattawan State Hospital, it was a prison hospital. I'm not sure why they arrested him, but we would go visit him, and all of us would be lined up. It was unbelievable. The prison officials couldn't understand how so many young people were following this man, and he would just see us one at a time and talk to us about. He wouldn't talk too much about discipline, but his whole code was the lessons. Know your lessons. Know your lessons. Yes, sir.
Powerful. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you very much for this history. Man, this is excellent. All right. The next question I have for you, sir, is how did your family and friends feel about you accepting the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad?
Well, most of my friends, all of us were members of the 5%. So we were all involved. So there wasn't that many that disagreed with me. Of course, there was some brothers and sisters that were Christians, but my mother was a little skeptical. I'm 16 years old, and she would say, you better be careful now. Well, it was two things that she said. She said, why do you listen to this man, Elijah Muhammad, when I told you everything that he's telling you? I always told you to stay in school. I always told you don't be smoking that reefer. I told you don't be robbing people or committing any crime, but you listen to him. Why you listen to him? I said, Mom, I said, I love you and respect you, but there was something that he said. There was a spirit, there was a connection that this man said that this penetrated my mind and soul. And I said, it was nothing against you. And then she would say, well, you better be careful. This, of course, this was after Malcolm was assassinated. She said, when you leave those people, they don't like that. They kill you. They do something to you. But that was, of course, that's something she heard some people say. But my mother was happy because I was in the street for a while, and I spent some time in a reform school as a young boy, and it was a training school in upstate New York. It was for 13-year-old, under 16. And my mother was very unhappy about that. And so she used to come and visit me up there, and she really wanted me to come home. So I remember I wouldn't go to school. I was out hanging out all night. And sometimes we were robbing people. We were robbing people. That wasn't no good thing. But anyway, once she was happy the fact that I wasn't doing those things anymore. And my mother, before she died, she said to me, she said, if I was a younger person, I would have followed that man, Elijah Muhammad. She said, and in fact, I stopped my mother from eating pork. In fact, let me tell you a story. When I first came into the teachings, and my mother was cooking some hog maws and chillings or something in the house, and I came home and threw all of that out of the house, threw it in the garbage. My mother came up to me, she put her finger right in my face. She said, boy, as long as you live, don't you ever in your life. So anything else, she said, I pay rent in this house, I buy the food. I didn't understand. And I went and told she tried to throw me out the house. We got very, very radical in our first introduction to the teachings. And I told the minister, the Honorable Minister Farrakhan, he said, brother, that's your mother's house. You can't do that. He said, this, you don't have to eat it, but she's right. So, but my mother eventually stopped eating pork. Yeah.
So, yes,
Yeah.
sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
All right. And thank you, everyone who's showing love all across the country. We're going to get to the minister, but I want to talk about Malcolm X. That time period, you said there was a firebombing of the mosque. Can you let us know what took place and what was the climate like when you actually being there in New York during that time period?
We were coming out to the mosque at the time, and we wasn't that well aware of Malcolm. We knew all the men, Captain Joseph and a lot of the lieutenants who were working with us. And like I said, Malcolm was out at that time, and we used to go out on call outs, and we would see them in parts of the city. And of course, they told us to stay away from them. And once the temple was firebombed after his assassination, which we really was not caught up in that because we didn't really know too much of I think they kind of kept us away and hidden from what was going on internally in during that period. And once the mosque was firebombed, we all had to meet either in Brooklyn and up in the Bronx.
Okay.
And many of the ministers would come in from different cities until they brought in the Honorable Minister Farrakhan from Boston. I remember Minister Troy B.R. Muhammad, he would come. Then you had Minister George out of Connecticut. He would come and teach sometime because we didn't have an official minister. And then Minister James Shabazz out of Newark, we used to call the Son of Thunder.
Yes, sir.
I mean, you talking about, this man was raw when he talked. And then Minister Isaiah Kareem would come in and teach sometimes. And Brother Minister Clyde Rockman out of Baltimore would come in. And these brothers were powerful. I mean, we were so elated. So, but, and then we would begin to collect money to rebuild that building. We would go out and ask, we had like a little pouch called the Gleaners, and it had a little picture of the way the mosque would look. And then we had a picture on one side, the destroyed building. And we would ask people to help us build an educational center. And we use the word Negro because at that time, Black people still was identifying with the word Negro. And we said, build an educational center for the Negro. And they would drop, of course, money into the baskets and quarters, nickels and dimes, and we would turn it in. And we just worked tirelessly to get that building built, And of course, then there was the assassination of Martin Luther King in 1968. I was working in the Shabazz restaurant. For the interest of the brothers and sisters who may not know, we had so many businesses in the nation this is before the Salam restaurant, before your supermarket, before Muhammad Speaks printing press, before all the businesses, the enterprises that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad set up. There were so many businesses the brothers owned in New York City. For the first 5 years, I never worked for a white man. I worked for every enterprise that the brothers, I worked for the Shabazz restaurant, Shabazz Steakhouse. I worked with the Brothers Moving Van Company. I worked with Pyramid Bakery. I worked in Brother, what's his name? Brother Lemuel's moving company. I worked in Brother Jacob's collision car establishment. Brother Jacob is the brother you see in Life magazine. You saw his family in the Life magazine that Gordon Parks did the expose on, and Malcolm is in it, the messenger sitting with his family. I spent a lot of, Brother Jacob was like a mentor to me. And that was so significant, Brother Joshua, during that period, that the brothers took us under their wing. If you were a young brother, there was some brother in the nation that would take you under their wing and, like teach you and, walk you through things and make sure that you stayed in. You know, there was one of my mentors beside Brother Jake was a brother named Brother Gary. If you've seen a picture, Brother Jabril has a book, a picture of Clarence 13X and Brother Gary selling Muhammad Speaks. Brother Gary this brother, he was a certified public accountant. Now you're talking about 1968, 67, 69. There were no Black certified public accountants. Gary was one. He had 2 houses. He took me to his house. I mean, he was a young man at the time. I'm in my teens. He must have been maybe about 30. And there was businesses all over the nation. So it was like for the first 5 years, I worked in many of the businesses owned by the brothers in the Nation of Islam. You name the business, all the way down to a shoe shine parlor, brothers had. That's right. And they had inside the mosque, they had like all the business cards. They said, keep the money in the circle. And many of the brothers had enterprise, and sisters. They had beauty salons and all kind of enterprises, bakeries. That's right.
Powerful. Yes, sir. Excellent teaching, Brother Haqq. All right. We want to thank you everyone who's showing love all across the country, saying all praise is due to Allah and sending their love to you. Thank you for teaching. This is excellent. Okay. What we want to do is we have a quick 60-second commercial break for all the sponsors of the People's Podcast, and we're coming right back to Brother Haqq so we can hear what happened prior to 75 and then bring it on forward so we can hear his life journey and how you became the captain and how you got into the ministry as well. One moment.
A camera and a drone. He does television and film editing. Please reach out to him if you need any of those services. Sister Miriam's ABC I Love Me, children's book and coloring book, and now Spanish book. All 3 available on Amazon.com. Sister Naima's Stay on Point Dance Academy, LLC. She teaches ballet virtually to young girls all across the country, right here in the studios of Atlanta, Georgia. Brother Kenneth's Bow Tie Maker Extraordinaire. He'll ship you bow ties anywhere across the nation. Dr. Henry Carter's King Henry Turkey Legs, right here in Atlanta, Georgia. Brother Rashad Muhammad's COVID-19 Disinfected Cleaning Services, out of Chicago. Student Minister Sharif Muhammad's book, A Soldier in the Movement of Christ, available on adulsharif.com. And lastly, Brother Joshua Muhammad's book, Cleopatra, as well as No Father, No Excuse, both available on Amazon.
Thank you very much to everyone who likes, shares, and subscribes and show love. We are grateful. And every anonymous Cash App donor of the People's Podcast, thank you all very much. From Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok as well. The next question that we have for you, Brother Haqq, is after you saw the Most Hon Elijah Muhammad speak live, did he ever come to New York after that, before 1975?
No, sir. No, sir. I don't know why. He spoke a couple of times. I think he spoke in Phoenix, Arizona, maybe 69, 68 or somewhere around that. We all wanted to go, but of course, everybody didn't get a chance to. I'm not sure any other place that he spoke. I don't think he spoke to live other than Savior's Day during that period. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Wonderful. Let's go to, you spoke of the Honorable Minister Farrakhan giving you personal advice about, when he's a minister in New York. What was it like seeing him in New York, like in up close and personal during that time period?
Oh man, he was the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's minister, and that's how we recognize him. He said he is the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's minister. In fact, when I came in, he wasn't on the. We had a radio program that came on at 6:30 every Sunday. We would all listen after we left the mosque. We would all go to the restaurant, the Temple Number 7 restaurant, and at the time, I think it was Brother. I believe it was Minister Lonnie Shabazz was the he was hosting the show. He was the spokesperson on that show. Muhammad Speaks on the radio. Then Minister Jabril, at the time, Bernard Kushmir, he also spoke. And then the Honorable Minister Farrakhan, he took over from there, and he would always say, we expect the return of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad at every broadcast. And but being around and seeing him, you know, it was, it's almost like, you know, I never really had like, my father was in my home, but he was never really there, so to speak. My father came out of the South, and he, you know, the war had really devastated him. He was in World War II, and the German soldiers and the Italian soldiers in Italy, because he served in Italy under the fascist Mussolini, where he had to fight on the American, of course, with America against the fascists. But he was never there for me in the way of being a father, but I loved him. But Minister Farrakhan was like another father. All these brothers there were like, because they took time with us. There was a class that the Honorable Minister Farrakhan set up at that time. The messenger, he said, told him to set this class up. And we would meet every Saturday afternoon. It was called the Young Adult Class. And if you were 12 years old to, I think, 12 to 18 or 21 or something like that, we were a part of that class. And of course, I don't remember everything that he said, but he used to tell us the messenger gave him specific instructions exclusively for these young brothers and sisters in this class. It was called the Young Adult Class. And who assisted him was a brother by the name of Minister Burke Muhammad. He was a teacher in the University of Islam. When the minister wasn't there, Brother Burke would take over, but he very seldom missed a class. And he told us, he said, what I'm giving you, he said, the messenger doesn't even give this to his ministers or the main body. He said, this is what will infuse you in this spirit. And I think that's the reason why I'm here today, because it was just something special, because I would have probably been back in the street. But so seeing him, you know, and we didn't, at the time, the mosque in Harlem didn't open up until 1970. So he would always come to Brooklyn and teach, because Brooklyn had the largest members in New York City. I mean, Brooklyn is just that kind of city. And, we used to be so many people. We used to have to literally stand up or be outside at a certain point. And so we would see him all the time. And we would go to colleges and in the area, because he was just becoming known in the city. Because when Malcolm got assassinated, a lot of that power went to Captain Joseph. You know, he was the wheeler and the dealer. So the minister had to really work his way in order to establish himself in the city, because he was from Boston. And I can remember at an FOI class, Captain Shaw wasn't there, but the First Lieutenant Clarence was there. And the minister was the first man I ever saw cry. I have never seen a man cry. And he would get up there and he started crying. He said, I'm doing everything, the messenger, and they are undermining me. And it was something else. So he had to literally fight in order to establish himself in New York City. And he started a ministry class from the outside, brothers who were just coming in, because Captain Yusuf Shah, Brother Captain Yusuf Shah, was a strong man, but he was just that kind of man. The messenger had to put him in. So the minister had to really fight to establish his authority here. And there's a lot of stuff that really happened. But it was amazing just to be around him all the time, because we would see him at different points. You know, we would travel with him. We had there was a place in Mount Vernon, New York, where a lot of Black people lived. That's Mount Vernon and And there's another part of that city. That's where DMX is from, and Mary J. Blige. They're from Mount Vernon, and Heavy D, Money Earning Mount Vernon. And we would go there with the minister after the regular mosque meeting, and we'd have meetings at night at 8 o'clock at night, and trying to establish, and we would travel with him, and that was so amazing because we would be there with the messenger's minister. That's how we looked at him. This is the messenger's minister. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Beautiful. Yes, sir. And people are showing love all across.
Let me just say something, brother. The brotherhood that we had at that time in the FOI class, see, that's what really attracted me to the nation. My mother never really forced us and my family to go to church. So she, so I was never, in a sense, religious in the Christian way. But it was a brotherhood, the way we treat each other. I remember one night, to show you the greatest brotherhood that ever existed on this planet. There was one night, it was a very cold night. We had our FOI classes on Monday nights, and it must have been mid-February, and it was below zero, and we were all in the FOI class that night. And the first lieutenant, Lieutenant Clarence 7X, he ran up, he said, brother captain, he said, there's a brother in the FOI class, he don't have he came to the temple with no coat, he don't have a coat. And Captain Shaw, he was kind of he was kind of animated kind of person. He said, all right, brothers, line them up. And we would line up in columns. And they asked the brother, he said, because the Honorable Mr. Muhammad would never allow us to have our brother without anything. And they lined the men up, and the brother would go through the columns, and each brother would put money in his hand. And Brother Joshua, once he finished, he had so much money, he could have bought 10 coats. And that, I had never seen anything like that in my life. Yes, sir.
Perfect. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Great, great. All right. Now, what we have, first of all, I want to just read some of the comments, Brother Haqq. People show you love. Excellent. My sister Miriam said, all praise due to Allah. Brother Daniel E says, Assalamu alaikum, family. Walaikum salam. And thank you, everyone who gives me as well as Brother Haqq the greetings. My sister Naima says, that's so beautiful. Hold on 1 second. Brother Nasir says, Assalamu alaikum. Brother Haqq was the first student minister that he served under at 17 in New Jersey City, New Jersey. Thank you, everyone who's given us this history. And we can't wait to put this on YouTube. People are going to show you love all across the country. Okay, let's go to February 25th, 1975. The Most Hon Elijah Muhammad departs. It's announced February 26, 1975. What was the climate like? How did it personally affect you?
It was the announcement came. I believe I was at work, and the announcement came that the Hon Elijah Muhammad had passed, and I was kind of numb, and because we had always were told that the white man, the devil, we were told that would play tricks and give false information about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. It was all over the news. And that particular year, I didn't go to Savior's Day in 1975. They set up in the 369th Armory. There was maybe just as many people there that particular afternoon as they were in Chicago. And then, of course, we all sat there, and Wallace Muhammad came on and spoke. All the ministers spoke before him, giving their allegiance to the Supreme Minister, Wallace D. Muhammad. And I was just kind of confused. See, I came of age in the nation, Brother Joshua. I was a young man, my puberty or whatever you want to say. And there was such a discipline, a spirit among us. You know, I mean, the spirit, you know, in the Quran, it says, I swear by the self-accusing spirit.
Yes,
You know,
sir.
literally, believers would turn themselves in, would confess if they committed an infraction. I mean, they would literally tell on themselves, because on every night, every Wednesday, every other Wednesday night, we had what's called law night. And they
Yes,
would bring
sir.
cases, up, and people would literally confess. This is why the Quran said, I swear by the self-accusing soul or the self-accusing spirit. It was that kind of spirit that permeated among the believers in the Nation of Islam. Okay, when you say swear, it's like when, you know, when you're in the street, I swear to my mother.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I swear to God. You know, really, if we said it in the street, we were lying anyway. But if you said swear to God, you know he's lying. But to swear means I affirm, I commit. And we brothers and sisters would literally confess. I remember one night, they brought up a brother, and the lieutenants, the investigators would bring him up, and Captain Shaw would commence the law. And one brother said, brother Captain, brother, because they wanted you, they allow you to speak, you know, because you would defend yourself. And the brother said, brother Captain, I was with a woman, you understand? I didn't touch her. We were together. Our clothes was off. We didn't do nothing. And Captain Shaw said, you should have done nothing. You should have did something, because we giving you 5 years out the mosque.
Damn.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes,
so
sir.
that kind of thing was among us, and that kind of spirit. So in 1975. I tried to hang on for a while. We were looking for the minister, the Honorable Minister Farrakhan, to let us know what was happening. And he had committed himself to support Wallace Muhammad. And we all thought, we had always heard that Wallace D. Muhammad would help his father. It was just something among us that we heard all the time, you know, that he would, you know. So I became kind of disenchanted. I tried the Sunni, so to speak. I started, me and Imam Shawaz Wahaj, he was Jeffrey 12 at the time. Me and him started taking Arabic together from the Syrian Muslim who was at the Farouk Mosque. The blind sheep, as they call him, was the Imam there. They accused him of firebombing, blowing up or trying to blow up First World Trade Building. But me and Imam Shiraj Wahaj were studying Arabic, and I began to study Orthodox Islam. It didn't work. It didn't work for me, you know. And because I always knew, you know, and I really and let the brothers and sisters know, we have to study the life of Prophet Muhammad, may peace be upon him, the Sunnah, but we have to be careful, because Hon Elijah Muhammad came something for us that was unique. And I remember I used to be around when I worked in the restaurant, the restaurant where everybody came. I saw Huey Newton. I saw Elgin Cleaver. I saw Ron Karenga. You name them. I saw Stokely Carmichael. I saw Angela Davis. All of them would come, because that's the best place you could eat. I would see all the jazz artists, Horace Silver, Miles Davis, because they wanted someplace clean. And the Sunni brothers would come in, and they taught me Arabic. They used to talk to me. And one of them pulled me aside one time, Brother Joshua. You know what he said? He said, we know the old man is right. He said, we know he's right. He said, I know they don't like us talking to you, brother. You know, they would give me, you know, Islamic books. He said, the reason why we don't come in, we don't got that discipline, brother. We out there snorting coke, but we know the old man is right. That's what they told me. That's right. And he said, that's the only reason. So I was at that point in 1975. 76, trying to hold on as best I can, you know. And then one night, Wallace Muhammad called an emergency meeting, and we all showed up. And he said, I want to announce. He said that my uncle, John Muhammad, Minister Jeremiah, he said Minister Aziz, who is now Akbar, Minister Akbar Muhammad, and he mentioned John Muhammad out of San Francisco, and Minister Farrakhan. He said they are trying to set up the Elijah Muhammad educational program. He said, stay away from them. Now, we all sitting around. And he said, Muhammad Ali is with him too. He said, but they got his head going like a pendulum. He said, stay away from them. They are not with me. And I'm saying, whoa. I said, wait a minute. What's going on here? I said, if we're about to relive the life of Malcolm X again? So after the meetings over, there's pockets of brothers talking, you know? And some of them said, we can't go against the imam because we have to take care of business. I said, oh my God, these are tough brothers. These are brothers that I've known for years that didn't play. So I'm saying, wow. But then I said, I want to find where the minister's at and ask him, is all this is true? And I couldn't get in touch with him. I couldn't get in touch. There was no, you know, to find out if what was being said. I found out later, none of this was true. None of that was true. They were, some of them were leaving, but it wasn't the way that he had got that information. I found out later. Yeah.
Man, praise be to Allah. You're giving us powerful history. I hope everybody's taking notes, because I'm taking notes. Yes, sir. You just said something. When you just said that, we gotta come back to that meeting. Hold on. The pen flew out my hand, brother. You going deep. All right, let's go back to the meeting. So when that happens, what's going through your mind when you hear him saying it's a, you know, everybody's don't go with the minister and all of them, and he's the supreme minister. So how do you handle that?
Yeah. It was I was torn. Didn't know what to do, didn't know what to think. And then I'm staying around, and there, like I said, it was pockets of brothers that I knew that were dangerous brothers. And they were saying they better not try to do anything or go against the imam, because we have to do better. And I was very dismayed by that. And I didn't want to talk to anybody. And I just went home very quietly. Of course, in my mind, I said, I need to talk to some of them, because I knew the Honorable Minister Farrakhan, I knew Brother Aziz, so Minister Larry, we called him. So I had no way of contacting either of them. And I mean, I was asking brothers, do they know where the minister's at, where Brother Aziz, I think he was in St. Louis at the time. And then I heard that he was going to appear in Springfield, New Jersey, and it was a big snowstorm, so we couldn't get out there. And then he appeared at a Black History Month program sponsored by Baruch College Black Student Union. And me and my brother-in-law, and we went. And the minister was there. He was teaching. You know, a younger Al Sharpton was with him. Brother Akbar was there, sitting on the stage, and the place was packed. And Minister Kareem was there at the time. He was Brother Linwood, and all these brothers from New Jersey were sharp. I said, man, this is the FOI, you know? Yes, sir. Because at the time, I was home, and I had 2 small children at the time. And so I was just laying around the house trying to figure out what I wanted to do, because I was no longer feeling what the imam was saying, because he had spoke at Madison Square Garden in a smaller venue called, what's the name of that venue? Felt Forum. And at that forum, he said, I heard some of y'all are saying that I'm not with my father. He said, all of y'all who are with me, stay here. All of you who are with Elijah Muhammad could leave. That was my exit because I thought all of us was with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. So that was my exit. So I silently and, without any fanfare, just stayed home trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And then I heard the Honorable Minister Farrakhan at this meeting, and we went out to the car, and my brother-in-law got his number, his phone number. He said to call him. And I think we called maybe about 2 or 3 months later. He said to meet him at, he would be in New York. This is 1978 now, late 77, early 78. He said he would be at he would meet us at 8 o'clock in the morning in front of Madison Square Garden, across the street from, he would be across the street at the Americana Hotel at the time. And we were there, me and my brother-in-law. Brother-in-law is Ali. And there, behold, he showed up. He was a little overweight. He had a like a tan leisure suit. He had an afro, and he had a tan. I don't know where he had been, but I think he had been out of the country. So we went into a restaurant. In fact, we shook hands. He said, brother, I haven't seen y'all since y'all were like teenagers at the time. When we in our 20s now. And, we sat in a restaurant called Brew Burger. Brother Joshua, we sat there from 8 o'clock in the morning to 8 in the evening. We asked him every question that you can think of. Is the Honorable Elijah, did he lie to us? What happened to the FOI class? I didn't even tell you about all what we went through doing before that. That's a whole nother discussion.
Okay, but Brother Haqq, we want to stay right there, and because we have so many questions we want to say at this dinner, and what you asked them and what were the responses. I just want to let you know people are showing you love all across the country. To Katrina Crowder saying she loves this. My uncle, Minister Jamil, says this is a very knowledgeable and beautiful brother. Soldiers trained by him tended to last and endure to maintain. Thank you very much, Uncle Jamil. Thank you everyone who's showing love all across the country. Okay, so 8 in the morning, 8 p.m., 1978, when you asked the minister, you said, did the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad lie to us or to you all? What was the response, and what was the response?
He said, brother, he said he never, ever said anything that was a lie. He said everything he said was the truth. I said, but brother minister, you were his spokesperson. You were his national representative. How did you fall? How did you go to sleep? He said, and I thought he was going to really I really didn't, kind of sidestep. He said, no, brother. He said, when the lights go out, he said, if the lights went out in this restaurant right now, he said, we would probably for a few minutes be feeling around trying to find our way until our eyes adjusted to the light.
Come on.
When the lights went out, when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad departed from us, he said his truth, his spirit, his word, darkness set in, and we all went dark. He said, even me, brother. And I respected that. He said, even me. And he said, but we want to rebuild his great work. And I asked him about where were all the brothers and sisters, and what about Wallace? What happened to the FOI? Because, in April 15th in 1972, the police attacked the mosque on 116th Street. And I was at work at the time. I was like 22 years old, and I heard it on the radio. I jumped on the train. I wasn't driving, of course, at the time. New York City, we got mass transit.
Yes, sir.
Until I went to other cities, I said, y'all don't have mass transit? But anyway, by the time I got up to 116th Street, Brother Joshua, the mosque was surrounded with FOI from Newark, from Connecticut, from Springfield, Mass, from Philadelphia, from Boston, from Baltimore, from DC. I mean, brothers hadn't been in the mosque we call desert Muslims, brothers who had excommunicated. Everybody showed up that day, and the spirit was so high because at the time we had captured the city. The minister had captured the city because he had became that well known, and the Muslims at that time, we were what you would call, we had literally captured the whole city in the imagination, and everybody wanted to be a Muslim. And if you know, and the devil knew this. The FBI and the CIA, they knew this here. And they had to set up some kind of incident to try to break. And they called, they said that someone had went into the mosque and had a gun. They had got a call. There was an incident. They came inside. So the brother at the desk told them, said, listen, you can come in, but you have to leave your guns. And you tell a white man that you leave your gun. I was a parole officer for 25 years. I know the protocol about your weapon. You don't leave your weapon. But the brother told him, said, you're not coming in here. He said, you could search the place. And the police officer pushed past him and ran up the stairs. Now, the University of Islam, the children are in the school, okay?
Yes, sir.
He runs up the stairs. The brother grabs him by the collar and pulls him down, picks him up, and throws him out the door and locks the door. That was our FOI training.
Allahu Akbar.
So he calls the command and says a 1013. In New York City, a 1013 is a police in distress. Every local precinct from around the city shows up and breaks through the door. They didn't know what they were going to meet. They met some men that they had never saw before, men
Yes, sir.
who were fearless. The minister was upstairs in the study. They met those brothers, and those brothers were saying, Allahu Akbar. In fact, when they went to court, they said they were screaming some kind of voodoo words. And them brothers were grabbing the guns. That's our training. They were grabbing them guns and throwing them and kicking them. And they were beating those cops down. In fact, that day, those cops hard pumped Kool-Aid.
Yes, sir.
Because the Hon Elijah Muhammad already told us, you remain faithful and fearless, and Allah will bless you with the victory.
Allahu Akbar. Yes, sir.
And that's right. And when the smoke cleared, one cop was dead. And they tried to pin it on one of the brothers. And we said, well, he might have, see, because they were shooting in there. The bullets was flying all over, but never touched one brother. One of those cops was wound up dead. And every year, up until this time, Brother Joshua, they take out a full-page article in the New York Times, the New York Daily News, the New York Post. We want the murderer of police officer Philip Cardillo. Brother Lewis 17X, who just passed, Louis Ali, he just passed not too long ago, and he was exonerated. And he never committed charged the nation with anything. So we talked with the minister all that time. And once in fact, we had sat in that restaurant drinking coffee and eating whole wheat toast. The waitress said, y'all got to leave because you're not ordering nothing. So we got up and we walked another 4 or 5 hours up and down 8th Avenue, asking him everything. I can't even remember all the questions. You know, and he told us that he's going to rebuild the nation, and would we help him? And I told him, I said, brother minister, as long as you with the Hon Elijah Muhammad, I will help you. And my brother-in-law, we both said the same thing. He got us in touch with Minister Burke, who was a University of Islam teacher for many years. And my brother-in-law met with Minister Jabril, Minister Bernard Kushmi at the time. And we found a place in the Harlem State Office building. We couldn't call it a temple or a mosque. we had to go under assumed name educational lectures. And we had every Sunday, we would have a meeting. And there was just a few of us. It was my two sisters. You probably know my sister. My sister Sharon. She's married to Sister Arif, Brother Arif.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, I brought her in when she was a little girl, and she and my other sister Stephanie. She's married to Brother Andrew Malik Muhammad. He's up in Albany. They live in Albany, and there was a sister named Virgie Muhammad. She was a school teacher. There was Minister Burke. There was Brother Thomas and his wife, Sister Mary and Sister Elizabeth, and it was just us for a few weeks, and a Minister Akbar would come in every other week to teach. He was in St. Louis, and we didn't know of the other study groups that were set up, at the time, and there was few of us up there. And then Brother Anthony, who's Brother Aziz now, who is the Assistant Supreme Captain. He was there. His family came, and we were at the Harlem State Office building for almost a year. And we got a radio. Brother Harold out of Philly, and what's the small city right outside of Philly? He was there with us. So it was wonderful setting up all those things. I think Brother Minister Arlene talked about, we met in the basement when we got put out of the Harlem State Office building. We met, they found out who we were. And we were meeting in the basement of McDonald's and in a lounge, and we were just all over the place. In fact, the minister came one time at the Harlem State Office building to save his our first one there. It was a small group. And but it was a wonderful time because I was filled with the Spirit. And Brother Joshua, I thought at that time everyone was going to come together. I said, the messenger's teachings is back. Because the scriptures say, my sheep know my voice.
That's right.
And we heard of the voice of the Hon Elijah Muhammad coming through the minister, And I thought everybody would join together. Because there were brothers in Baltimore, there was different groups. Salas Muhammad had a group. Royale had a group. There was a brother named Brother Avery, he had a group. They were all over. And, I didn't understand. I was so upset. I said, the messenger's teachings are back, so why are we not coming together? Brother Yusuf Bey up in Oakland, there were many groups, but then I had to reflect on there was an article that the minister used to write all the time in the Amsterdam News and different newspapers around the country, and it was called The Final Call. And I reflected on what he used to write in there. In the book of Matthew, in the 26th verse, it said, all of you will be offended of me this night. Because now it says all of us will be offended because of me this night. And we're talking about the night. Night is darkness.
Yes, sir.
He said, I will smite the shepherd and the sheep shall scatter. And I didn't understand the fullness of that at the time. So Hon Elijah Muhammad was smited. His word was attacked. His very essence of his being and his teachings was smited, and it affected us. All of us were affected. And because of him this night, because this night, it's dark. We don't understand what's going on. And the sheep scattered all over the place. So he had groups in different parts. He said, but I will rise again and go into Galilee.
Yes, sir.
And this is when I began to understand that I knew what had happened. And I continued to work to build. And it was interesting, all those places that the minister was the Honorable Minister Farrakhan was prominent with, they were the ones that were against him at that time. Boston, I remember there was a threat, don't come up to Boston. And I was a captain of the FOI at the time. They called me Captain Gaddafi. You know, he every now and then he sends a message through my brother-in-law, Brother Arif, to say, Brother Haqq, tell Brother Haqq, Captain Gaddafi, I'll never forget what he has done for me when I didn't have anything, you know? And so they told him not to come up to Boston. This was his first meeting up in Boston in years. And there was a big threat. So I was a captain. So we took a busload of believers up to Boston. We met at a place called the Strand Theater. Very beautiful place. Architecture looked like one of them old theaters that you see when you were growing up.
Yes, sir.
And there was some brothers that had been with Wallace. And I told them, I said, listen, bring them in. Bring them upstairs. The brothers brought them upstairs. And they were about 4 or 5 of them. I said, brother, you want to hurt the minister? No. We come to here. We come to here. I don't know where that came from. And in Newark, there were threats. And one of our brothers got shot, Brother Walter, because we were out. The minister spoke at the Robert Treat Hotel in Newark. And we were on Broad Streets selling the final call. And them brothers in Newark are a little different from other cities, brother. They don't play either. But anyway, there was a big confrontation, and Brother Walter got shot. He was one of the ones that helped establish one of the study groups in Boston in 1978, 79. Him and his wife, Sister Doris. Some of the believers that are listening, they'll might have remembered them. You know, we have to give them credit. Yes.
Right.
So, you know, we the minister's speaking now in New York City. You know, in 1980, he spoke at City College, and thousands of people. This was his homecoming back to New York in a major meeting. I don't recall. Some of the believers might remember the title, but we weren't that well organized in terms of our setting up things, and people were coming in, and we were taking their watches and their cameras and all their little instruments. We shouldn't have took all them things. They had some of them wanted to sue us because we didn't want nothing to happen at that time to the minister. We took everything from them. We took everything, and so some of them threatened to sue us because a lot of the stuff was personal stuff that belonged to them. And then he came back the next year at the 369th Armory in Harlem, and that was in 1981. It was called Countdown to Armageddon. And yes, and I think that's when we gained a lot of brothers and sisters. And right after that, we started meeting in the Bronx at Parkside Plaza, and Dr. Alim came at that time. And I remember Brother Jamil came from, he came in from Philly. And Brother Minister Kareem at the time said he said, brother, I was a captain. He said, Brother Captain, that's James C. Ball. You know, he said, look at him. He said, his men look just like him. They're clean. That means he's doing something clean. He said, whenever you see a follower and the men look clean like the man they following, that means they're doing something right. Yes, sir. So
praise be to Allah.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Shout out to Minister James C. Ball. That's you first person ever said that on here. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Okay, but I want to go back. The name Captain Gaddafi, I mean, it's very strong. Dr. Alim spoke about it. My father, knows, referenced you as well. How did you get that name?
Well, and of course, you know that Colonel Gaddafi of Libya, he was the first one that gave the Hon Elijah Muhammad the loan, $2 million. This was back in 72, I believe. And I was so impressed with that. And we came to know him. He was one of the really the first Muslims in the East that really embraced the teachings and the respect for the Hon Elijah Muhammad. And he knew what we were doing. And in fact, the day they attacked the mosque in September 15, in 1972, he called New York and said, I'm ready, whatever y'all need. So he gave us, he loaned the messenger $2 million. And believe it or don't know this, the messenger paid him back the $2 million. So I was so impressed with him. I named my first son Gaddafi. He lives in Georgia, not too far from you, brother. His name is Gaddafi. And I took on the name because I was so impressed with him. So when when the minister came back, I took on the captain's position and I kept the name. So I would travel up and down the East Coast training the brothers. And, I remember your father and what's the brother that was always with him?
Brother Haqq.
And I remember when they came in, you know what? Everywhere we would go, I would see them. They were just there. They didn't have the X at the time, but they would show up. And so Brother Kareem said, check them out, Brother Captain. So I took them outside. I said, brother, who are y'all? I said, what are y'all doing? We didn't know if they were CIA or FBI.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
He said, why you following the minister around? And they said, brother, we here to protect him. He said, and your dad said, see, y'all are on the inside, but we here and see things on the outside. And I never thought of that. I said, yeah, you're right. And then eventually him and Brother Haqq came in and became great helpers in the rebuilding of the Nation of Islam. And he became the supreme captain. I love your father. You know why? Because he always referred to the proper handling of people. He said, proper handling of people. You know what that means? That means he was genuinely interested in the well-being of people.
Praise be to the
Nation
Lord.
of Islam is a people's organization. It's a people's movement. And you have to treat the people. See, people don't know this here. When Captain Shaw told me, he said when the messenger sent Malcolm, the secretary, Maceo Aziz, to New York City as the minister, captain, and secretary, he told each one of them, he said, this is a command I'm giving each and every one of y'all. He said, you treat those believers well, or you're out of luck with me. That's right. See, that's what you have to do. And your father always brought up the proper handling of people. And, when I was a young Muslim, we were selling so much fish in New York City. I was working as a youth director, as a youth program.
Yes, sir.
They wanted me to work there as a youth director. So I was working in the program, and the brothers at the time, the fish program was the major component of business in New York City. We were selling tons of fish, making a lot of money. And the brothers would start coming down, those brothers that were working in different other jobs, they would come down on us. So the brothers saw me one day. They said, I was Ronald 36X at the time. They said, Brother Ron, how come you ain't with the Messenger's fish program? You hypocrite, brother. You ain't selling the Messenger. You're not down with the program. I felt so bad. I went home and I told my wife, Sister Helen, I said, I'm going to quit my job and go sell the fish full time. Brothers, listen to your wife sometime. The wisdom of the queens. She said, my wife, Sister Helen, I've known her since she was 14, and I was 15. And she heard the teachings before me, really. She had went out before me. And but she didn't come in and get her ex until after, because women are not like us. We jump into things and we make all these mistakes.
Yes, sir.
And she came in later. She out-Muslimed me when she came in. But she told me, she said, listen, don't quit your job. She's listening to me. She said, sell fish part-time, because I was well known in our neighborhood. She said, sell fish on the weekend. But Joshua, I was selling so much fish on the weekend. I was selling more fish on the weekend than the brothers that were full-time. I had so much money. I mean, we would sit up night counting so much money, we would get tired of counting. So always listen to the wisdom of the queen. In fact, my wife was the director really the culture director of the temple in New York City. She took us, set up. We saw the Soldiers play before it was a movie. The Soldiers
Yes,
Story. It was on.
yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
We went to see Denzel Washington and Felicia Rashad in a one-act play.
Beautiful.
He was playing Malcolm X. This was off Broadway. She set that whole thing up.
Mm.
And we made sisters. So the brother believers from Boston, from New Jersey and Connecticut all showed up. And she would have poetry nights. My wife is a poet. And in fact, I want to get her book, Brother Joshua, so you can announce it. This is her book, exclusively for you, Black man.
Yes,
She's
sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. And all the sisters would all like what she was saying in the poetry. She had a famous called Black Man Listen attentively to me. Yes. So I don't know where I was at, but I you know, that's what they called me, Captain Gaddafi. And I was the captain of the FOI. And then one day, I think we were, I think this is when the minister had spoke in New York, for like 4. You spoke to Brother Anthony. He had a little not correct information, but I believe it was 4 weeks in a row, every Wednesday night in New York City. And after the 4th night, the next morning, myself, a brother that I knew, that I grew up with, he had a limousine service, and we were taking the minister back to the airport. And it was me, Brother Kareem, who's formerly Brother Linwood, and I'm sitting in the back. No, the minister's sitting in the back. I'm sitting in the front. Him and Brother Kareem are sitting in the back. And he says to me, he said, Brother Minister, he said, how's your family? So I'm thinking he's joking, you know, how we call each other doctor.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You know, pen names and pet names. So I don't pick up. So he says, let's pull over and get something, you know, get us some water or something. He said, Brother Minister, you want something? I'll make sure we pay for everything. And I mean, he's calling me, he's saying things to me, he's calling me these ministers, and I don't pick up. I said, I'm the captain, Brother Minister. He said, Brother Haqq. He said, I've watched you from a teenager. He said, that's your calling, the ministry. He said, I want you to assist Brother Kareem in the ministry. You be his assistant minister.
Okay.
He said, let me say something to you. He said, he's a minister. He said, but you know who's going to get all the weight? He said, the assistant minister is going to be the buffer between the believers and the people and the minister. And I learned a lesson of that. Brother Kareem would ask me to do many, many things that, you know, and that's the way it's set up. The first lieutenant is a hands-on person. The captain gives the orders and instruction to the lieutenant, but the hands-on person that actually is on the ground is the first lieutenant. Same with the minister. The minister gives the spiritual teaching, but the assistant has to carry those out. And I had to deal with all kind of issues with the believers and families and brothers and you name it, I dealt with it.
All praise due to Allah. Yes, sir. Well, and Brother Haqq, people are showing you love all across the country. I'm saying praise be to Allah and Jesus, Naima, everybody, because we need some specific advice. Brother Roosevelt, thanks God Almighty for your service and work, help save your life, helping Minister Farrakhan rebuild. Thank you, Brother Roosevelt, all the way from New Orleans. Sister says she's been registered since 1970. Minister Haqq was absolutely one of the most loving ministers she's known in 54 years. Praise be to Allah. Thank you, everyone who continues to show love all across the country. All right, so the minister asked you to help in the ministry, become a student minister. Now you become a minister. What advice would you give to others about specifically in this time period? Something I always ask people, the Most High Mr. Farrakhan is going to lead. What advice would you give to the believers and keep holding on to our faith?
I heard Brother Anthony that you interviewed recently say about studying. See, prior to 1975, whatever came across the rostrum, that's what we took. That's what we received.
Yes, sir.
Very few studied. There was few brothers here and there and sisters that studied. But in the absence of your mother, your father, your instructor, your teacher, you have to study. One year, of course, you've heard that lecture that Hon Elijah Muhammad gave at Savior's Day. Will you survive?
Yes, sir.
How strong
Yes,
is your
sir.
foundation? In one of the greatest for the FOI, one of the greatest rewards at an FOI, or greatest thing to FOI, was to stand front rostrum for the Hon Elijah Muhammad. I always look towards that. And in 1974, when he spoke, I remember the captain, I think his name is Captain Lawson. He was a captain under Minister Abdul Rahman out of Georgia. I was sitting in the front. He pointed to me. He said, "You relieve that brother." And Hon Elijah Muhammad is talking and speaking. That's when he says, "Get up. We've been sitting down too long." He said, "Brother Haqq," well, I was named Brother Haqq. He said, he pointed to me, the captain. He said, "You relieve that brother." And that was the first time that I stood front rostrum for the Hon Elijah Muhammad. Excuse me, brother. That was my honor. It was an honor for me to stand with the man that shook the hand of God.
Oh, yes, sir.
So I advise the brothers to study, advise the sisters to study, because the winds of time and emotions, and you're going to have to actually understand that what you say you believe. They used to say, you can turn devil overnight. Why the night? Because the night is darkness. That's why the Holy Quran talks about the chapter Al-Falaq, when darkness comes. And you got to feel your way through this here. You can't necessarily rely all the time on your brother and sister. You got to have something. And the minister will leave one day. He's a bright, shining star. But he's trying to give light, because there's many stars in the universe. He's a brighter one. And your light is going to have to shine to guide you through the difficult times.
Yes, sir.
So my advice is to study that which you were taught, and faith is the substance of things hoped for. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Your faith will carry you through. And know that the teachings of the Hon Elijah Muhammad, I don't care what happens. I was a minister in Jersey City in 1988. Jersey City, if you said Assalamu alaikum, and the brothers and sisters from New Jersey could attest to this, they used to call Newark Muslim town. Jersey City was Muslim town. If you said Assalamu alaikum to 10 people in Jersey City when I was a minister there, 9 will return that greetings of wa alaikum salam. That's how much Islam was penetrated in that city. I love Jersey City. I mean, and the city was almost 70% Black. But I advise the brothers and sisters to study. That's my advice.
Yes, sir. Praise be to Allah. Wonderful. We have a few more questions for you, Brother Haqq. I'm so used to just saying Brother Minister, Brother Haqq, so he must be calling Brother Haqq, so we can respect that. Thank you, everyone who is showing love all across the country. Brother said Camden, New Jersey is right next to Philly. Okay, beautiful, wonderful. Okay, everybody's putting the emojis and showing you love. You're going to get a lot of comments on YouTube as well, sir. What type of music do you listen to, sir?
I love all music, believe it or not. Of course, there was certain music, segment of music I listened to more than others. I like classical music. My sister was older than me, so I listened to what you call the doo-wop era. Frankie
Okay,
Lyman
okay,
and the Teenagers, and
okay,
the
okay.
Chiffons, and the Marvelettes, and the Temptations. And also I listened to jazz.
Mm.
Miles Davis. I worked in the Shabazz steakhouse, and they had a restaurant that was run to, a club called the Blue Coronet, and Horace Silver and Miles Davis and Freddie Hubbard doing their breaks, doing their break in their sessions. They
Yes,
would
sir.
come in and have some bean pies, and they would come in. I used to see them all. And I used to listen to John Coltrane and Eric Dolphy and Sarah Vaughan. I love that music. And of course, um, my children were young during the 70s and 80s. So, I had to be exposed to hip hop.
Yes, sir.
And I loved the hip hop era when Eric B. and Rakim and LL Cool J. In fact, when the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan made the tape, this is Public Enemy's time now,
Mm.
the Rebirth of the Nation in New York City, I was given the responsibility to take the tape and show it. At the time we had Betamax. So we would take the tape throughout the city in different venues. And one brother Nathaniel, who lived in Roosevelt, Long Island, he said, "Brother Haqq, there's a community center out here. Take it to the community center. There's a lot of young brothers." So we took the tape out there, and lo and behold, Professor Griff was sitting in the audience. The S1Ws were sitting there. So I didn't know them at the time. And right after the meeting, I took their numbers and their names, and they started coming out to the temple, and they began to process. So, and I would, Professor Griff and Brother James and the other brothers, Robert, they would call me up every night, have me on the phone for hours, And so I listen to hip hop. I love hip hop, and that's the kind of music I listen to. I can listen to Japanese music too. I mean, I understand what they're saying. And you know what I love too? I love Latin music, because I grew up in an area, there was a lot of brothers and sisters that I grew up with from the, what you call the Puerto Rican community.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
We could listen to Eddie Palmieri and Pacheco and Machito and Hector Lavoe. And I used to dance Latin music with, like, they would call it salsa at the time. That I was called Bela El Rey, the king of, and I love that music, because it has the African music and beats in it. That's right. Sir. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Powerful. Yes, sir. Praise be to Allah. We learned so much from my brother. Okay, bro, I have one more question for you. We got to bring you back for another part two, put you on the spot, because this is so much. Once we put this on YouTube, what happens is everybody's going to put in the comments, can you ask him this? Can you ask him that? Can you ask him this? Because some people will bear witness and have all these questions, so we got to bring you back. But I want to know, sir, what would you like your legacy to be?
You can still see me, right?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay, because my screen shrunk, but I didn't know. Well, one time, Brother Minister Kareem, formerly Brother Lindwood, he said something one time, I just didn't realize it. He said, "I want to introduce you, Brother Minister Haqq." He said, "He's a Muslim's Muslim." So I always wanted to be just a brother. I never, Brother Joshua, desired to hold any post in the nation. When I came in the Nation of Islam, I was just happy just to be in the Nation of Islam. I never wanted to be a lieutenant, a captain, minister. I never aspired to be those things. I just wanted to be a brother. And that's what I wanted to be, my legacy to be, a brother to the brothers and sisters in the Nation of Islam, and could be assistance however I could be. And that's how I came up in the nation. Those brothers and sisters that were in the nation, they were like my big brothers and sisters, my mother's and father's absence of my biological. And they welcomed me into their homes and anything that I needed. There was some brother named Brother Jesse. He couldn't have children. He had been in the nation since 1950. He used to pay for my Savior's Day. And I was so grateful, you know, and that's what I want my legacy to be, that I've been a brother, you know. One time we young brothers, we were selling like 300-400 Muhammad Speaks a week. And there was a brother that we didn't see all the time. We would see him periodically. And when he came out, we were a little arrogant because we were selling paper. We thought we were like top soldiers. And we would confront him, brother, where you been at? How come you're not selling the messengers, pushing the messengers program? He would never say anything. He would never say anything. And then one year we went to Savior's Day. You know where he was? Sitting right next to the Hon Elijah Muhammad on the stage. You never know. You never know who is in and around you. You may not see me, but you don't know where. And like you, Brother Joshua, this is your podcast, brother. You are disseminating information. This is your roster, brother.
Yes, sir.
Brother Minister. Yes, sir. But brother, you know what? I love your father. And when he was Supreme Captain, he would always say, I'd say again, I don't know if you ever heard him talk about it. He said, the proper handling of the people.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I'll tell you how we got that in another time, how we got that proper handling of the people in the nation. They came out in 1962. Yes, sir.
Okay, you give me. See, I'm already prepared for the part 2 already.
Yes,
thank
sir.
You. Yes, sir. And thank you
and
very
thank
much.
you again for being patient with me. And my children usually help me out with the technology because I don't know it that well.
Yeah. Listen, we're well fed. I thank you. This is Sunday. Most people's spiritual day, so we love getting the information, and we want to bring you back. And to all the other people who want to try to steal my guest, please leave Brother Haqq. He's exclusively signed with us. We got something working out right now. You know what I'm saying? Because they're gonna try to be like, oh, I got Brother Haqq on the podcast before you. No, brother, we got Brother Haqq. We're gonna keep getting this series going. We want to bring you back for part 2 next month, inshallah. And please give the greetings to your family on behalf of myself, my family, and the viewing audience of the People's Podcast. We thank Allah for you and the sacrifices of not just you, but your family as well. I didn't know who you are. I'm glad that I had this conversation. I'm honored to meet you, someone who has such history, and I look forward to seeing you in person so that we can break bread and I can ask you more questions off the record, sir.
Yes, sir.
I'm honored that you would take time out of your podcast. I've learned so much today. We've learned so much today. And may Allah continue to bless you and the family. This is Joshua Leonard Muhammad signing off with the People's Podcast. Thank you, Brother Haqq, and thank you all for watching. Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Wa alaikum salam.